Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Why Was My Condo D&O Claim Denied webinar. I'm Sherry Branson, Marketing Manager with Kevin Davis Insurance, and I'm now joined by Kevin Davis, the President of Kevin Davis Insurance. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, Sherry, how you doing?
Doing great, thank you. And here we are, it's May, Kevin. The NBA playoffs are happening. I know the Lakers are in the playoffs, and
Yes, yes.
baseball season has started, so there's a lot going on right
A lot
now. A lot
going
going
on
on in
right
the world.
now. We're feeling pretty good. And guess what? The weather's nice, no rain. I can see it can rain almost every day in LA. We haven't had rain in so long, and finally we're seeing some sun. So we're feeling good today.
Yes, yes. I saw a lot of wildflowers that people put pictures up of. The rain just caused so many wildflowers and really colorful mountains. It was beautiful, really, really beautiful. And
Yep, it's
congratulations, your grandson joined us in our little prep. Congratulations. He's so cute. Very, very cute.
yeah, he helped me out to set this thing up. He's helped me set the stage. He put me in focus now in terms of doing this presentation. So he's
He'll be on the webinar soon as our guest.
exactly, exactly. Yes, yes, that's true.
Great. And today we have a great topic, Kevin. We have a lot of people joining us, so welcome everybody from all over the country. We're excited to do the webinar today. Kevin, we're going to talk about, why claims are denied. People get concerned about that. Of course, it's happening all the time. So can you discuss our goal a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. First of all, make sure you read the disclaimer here because that's important. Because we're not lawyers, we're not claims people. What we are is giving our ideas and our opinions about certain things we've seen. So this is what our goal. This is the one question I get asked all the time. Why was my D&O claim denied? Because we're seeing a rash of applications now. We're seeing these applications where either it was non-renewed because there was a claim, or non-renewed because of a claim and it wasn't paid. So I think today was the first time I get a chance to say, these are the reasons why I see that claims have been denied across the board from everybody, not just any one carrier, not carrier, but these are some of the reasons. So when we get done, should we have a better focus understanding that, okay, I understand why my D&O was denied. So, but before we get started, Sherry, let's kind of look at why D&O, why are claims anyway for community associations? And you live in an HOA, right, Sherry?
Yes, yes.
Uh,
So if I got upset about, if I wanted to put a fence in, a different type of a fence than my HOA required according to the covenants, then I might get upset and sue or file a claim.
yeah, and that's what it boils down to. Normally, we're talking about what a board director's responsibility is to maintain the common area, right? To maintain it, pass assessments, or collect assessments and enforce the rules. And you're right. All of a sudden, you want to change your fence. Okay, they come back and say, no, you can't change it because it doesn't meet the beauty of the HOA. And you say, wait a minute. I bought my house. Nobody ever told me I couldn't do X, Y, or Z. And so you file a claim against the board of directors, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's what it is. People want to change their houses a certain way, paint their houses a certain color. They want to put in a particular fence. They may want to put a flag out front. I mean, these are very personal claims where people, it's their home, it's their property. And if they don't get their way, a lot of times claims happen and lawsuits happen. And I
And
did
and
want,
and and
okay,
that's the key. And when we talk about why these claims get denied, so let's go to number one. This is the number one reason why we see claims denied. Now, I'm saying here it does not meet the insurance agreement definition. So when we talk about the insurance agreement, we talk about a claim against the insured for a wrongful act. Those are the three important things that we're talking about. Claim. Now, here's the interesting part. And when we talk about claims for D&O for community associations, and specifically the ones Sherry just talked about, where she wanted to paint that fence a certain color and they weren't allowed. If you have a D&O policy and it says to pay as damages, see that line in there? I should have highlighted that line. Pay as damages because of a claim, you're in trouble. Okay. So the number one reason why we see claims being denied because there's a one line in there, pay as damages. Okay.
mhm,
Now,
mhm.
we look at the claim, insured, wrongful act, the terms are all similar, But if Sherry got mad at me and all of a sudden I'm the board president, and you got mad at me and put a claim against me because you wanted to put a brown fence in there, you're not allowed. And guess
Mhm.
what? Now you have a claim against me. Sherry, you got to ask for damages, are you?
Oh, yeah, of
Yeah. No,
course.
you just want the board to be competent enough to allow you to put
Right.
that fence up, right?
I just want the fence. I just want the fence. It's not really about money. It's not really a concern about money. It's more just, I want to put the fence up or I want to build that shed, that kind of a thing.
Yep. And that again, this is the number one reason why we see the reason why your claim has been denied. There are certain D&O policies out there. In fact, if you look at a liability policy, liability is legally obligated to pay as damages. But
Mhm.
with a D&O policy, it should be claimed for any wrongful act by the insured. It's a claim. That means there could be no damages. And
Mhm.
that is the number one claim. The claim Sherry and I just talked about had nothing to do with damages. So if you have a D&O policy that says damages because of a claim, you're in trouble.
Mhm. And Kevin, you know, we've talked in other webinars before about how most of the claims that we see are not about money. They're non-monetary claims. They're not about money. They are about the fence or the, like we said, the flag or the painting the house a certain color or dogs or pets, that kind of a thing.
And if you
Most
get
of
if
them
you
are.
if you go back to what I said earlier, that the board's responsibility to enforce the documents, okay, collect assessments, and to maintain the property. Most of
Mhm.
those things that happen is that I'm upset because you're enforcing the rules, the pool hours. Okay. I don't like the
Mhm.
pool hours the way you are. I don't like the
Mhm.
gym hours. Okay.
Mhm.
I don't like the fact that I can't have a pet. I don't have a pet. So all those damage, all those claims do not result in damages.
Mhm.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yep.
So
Absolutely. Yep. And I did want to take a second, Kevin, just to mention to everybody that I record all of the webinars and put them on our website, which is kdisonline.com. So if you'd like to listen to today's webinar or all of our past webinars, feel free to visit our website. And if you'd like today's presentation, please send me an email to sherry.branson@amwins.com, and I'm happy to send you a copy of today's presentation.
okay. So let's go to number two. Number two goes from the standard policy exclusions. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, this is be careful. These are standard policy exclusions that you see all the time. The important ones are number one and number two. Bodily
Mhm.
injury and property damage are the number one D&O exclusions you see out there across the board. And the reason why is because it's covered under your general liability policy. Okay.
Mhm. Of course.
So if Sherry, you go back to it, okay, now all of a sudden, you put that shed up, okay, or you
Mhm.
put the fence up, right? And the reason why you put the fence up because you are upset because the board haven't maintained the common area to your satisfaction. You know,
Mhm.
you painted your fence brown not because you wanted to be different, but you wanted to make sure that the association looked better than it did.
Mhm.
But it's
Mhm.
not right now. The place is really deteriorating, and all you did was kind of help out your own area there. So now
Mhm.
all of a sudden you're upset. Now you sue the board of directors because they failed to maintain the common area, and because they failed, the fences are broken now. There is stuff everywhere that they haven't maintained it. There's cracks where there should be cracks at. There's trees growing where there should be trees. They haven't trimmed them, so they're basically property damage out there. So you're upset because it's property damage. Your roof is leaking, right? You're upset because they haven't done their job properly. So now all of a sudden you get mad at me and sue me as the board president because I failed to maintain a common area. I failed to repair the roof. And now you sue me for a D&O claim. Well, guess what? That's not covered because property damage is excluded under the D&O policy.
Mhm. It makes sense.
Yes,
And
yes.
it behooves the board members to be aware of what exclusions are in their policy. So when people call them with a complaint or send a complaint in, they know, you know, what's excluded and what's covered and what's not covered under a D&O policy. Just so they're educated and more aware of what their insurance does cover.
Now, the next one is interesting. Number three. These are kind of claims that I get a phone call on and say, guess what? Sherry lives in a condominium. She goes to the pool and she's upset there because she can't enjoy the pool because the kids are making so much noise. Right? All right. Because I mean, you're a nice person, Sherry, but you enjoy your pool, right? You enjoy your pool area. You want to go, the kids make too much noise. Then you go back to your room. And you want to do some work. Because now you're working from home. We're all working from home now. And you're working, and you're looking outside your window, and guess what? The kids are still making a lot of noise, right? They're still
Mhm,
making a lot of noise. Okay.
mhm,
So now all
mhm.
of a sudden, what happens? So now all of a sudden you are going after the board of directors and saying, guess what? You know, the board failed to breach their fiduciary duty because they're not handling the kids properly. You know, I want to be able to enjoy the peace and quiet of my community association without having a lot of loud noise in me. Um, Noise is happens to be right now one of the big areas that we see in claims in community associations right now, especially in condos.
Yes,
See more
yes,
and more
especially
condos.
condos. Yeah, the hardwood floors for many years were, brought in a lot of claims. I know that the noise from walking above, if the hardwood floors were put in, and elevators, I know in New York City have been an issue in the past, loud elevators and that kind of thing. Things that you wouldn't think of that could generate a noise claim. You think of typically like kids or a dog barking or radio or music or something, but there's a lot of ways that noise can turn into a claim.
And the problem with noise is that how do you determine if it's too loud or not? I mean, that's another problem is that it costs a lot of money. You have to get noise specialists in there and do a series of studies, a series of reports to find out, well, guess what? It is too loud or it's not loud enough or whatever it is. I mean, it's interesting because again, we see it in elevators, you see it in air conditioning units. You'd be surprised how many times air conditioning units make so much noise. So it's not just children, you know, it could be the landscaper outside with his blower. Uh, we because people are home now, you know, there's something I call the post-COVID effect. Post-COVID
Mhm,
effect means I
mhm,
am home. And because I am home, I'm disrupted a lot. Normally, I go to work in the mornings, 8 o'clock, come home at 4 or 5. I don't see it. But today at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm looking out my window and seeing things I don't like.
mhm.
It's
And
just
hearing
too many
and
things
hearing
happen.
things hearing things that you wouldn't normally hear if you weren't working at home. If you were in the office, you wouldn't know all this was going on.
And so we're seeing these things that happen more and more. And because of, I call it the post-COVID world we live in, we're seeing a lot more claims because of the things we're talking about right now, because we're living at home and we're seeing these things and we're hearing things that we don't like. I'm working from home right now, right? All of a sudden, the guy next door to me who bought a COVID pet, he's back at work. So his COVID pet is barking all day long. you know.
Mhm,
So
mhm,
all of a sudden now, I'm really frustrated because I can't get my work done because he has his dog there. His dog is barking, and he bought a COVID vet. For 2 years he was home. Now all of a sudden he's going back to work Monday, Wednesday, and on Fridays. So you know, noise is one of those areas that is a problem, will be a problem, and you may find where it's excluded at is we look at the definition of pollution. So check
mhm,
the definition of pollution because noise is considered a pollutant. So it
mhm,
might be
mhm,
there. It might be in the definition. All you want to do is say, hey, does my DNO policy exclude noise? So if you're out, that's all you got to do. If it doesn't exclude noise, if it does, be careful because we're living at home at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm hearing things I don't want to hear. I got a lot of work to
mhm. Hearing things and seeing things, absolutely. And so many people, got comfort pets during COVID. Now we're post-COVID, but so many people got comfort pets. That really exploded in the past couple of years. So many people, like you said, have more pets and now they're not home and the animals are alone. So that makes
do.
a big difference.
Tell
Mhm,
you we're so that's now again these are exclusions, these are three exclusions that you got to be careful of. Discrimination in employment practices. If you have a condo and you have an employees, be careful because your DNO should not exclude employment practices because guess what? If you have employees and you do fire them and term them, they will come back and sue you for wrongful termination.
mhm,
Big one there is discrimination because
mhm,
everything we're talking about is easy for Sherry to say, not only did you make too much noise, and not only are you hurting me because I can't build my fence, but guess what? You're doing it because you don't like me. You know,
mhm,
you don't
mhm,
like me because I'm a female and you're discriminating against me.
mhm,
You're
mhm,
harassing me, you're bullying
mhm,
me,
mhm,
and when you
mhm,
hear those terms, and you hear them a lot. Again, people are home. So we hear the term bullying and harassing and discriminating against me because I'm a protected class. We're hearing that. All the stuff that now we're seeing in our post-COVID world, and you got to make sure they're not excluded under your policy.
Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, I mean, discrimination can be, if I want to fly the flag and they say you can't fly your flag, and I can say, well, I feel that I'm being discriminated against. Why can't I fly my flag?
Right to
It
free
really
speech.
covers so many different, yeah, free speech on the Facebook page. That's another kind of a hotbed of activity. You know, in my neighborhood in particular, the dogs. People are always talking about people's dogs and taking pictures of the dogs, and.
And all these things leads to claims that could be excluded if you have any of these exclusions in your policy. Number three. So number 1 and 2, normal. Every DNO policy has them. And for one reason, because if you have a claim or breach of fiduciary duty because my roof is leaking, or breach of fiduciary duty because I tripped and fell, and the board should have maintained the property better, not DNO, GL. Noise, discrimination, and employment practices. If they should not be excluded under your DNO policy. If they're excluded and a claim comes in, Sherry's example she just gave comes in, not going to be paid.
Hmm.
Next one. Now these are limitations coverages, meaning that they get some coverage there, but not the kind of coverage you should. Some exclude it in its entirety. Some provide some. You got to make sure you have some coverage when it comes to insured versus insured. Okay.
Hmm.
And insured versus insured is pretty simple. Sherry is the vice president of the condo. I'm the president of the condo. And all of a sudden, I say that, you know what we're going to do? We're going to replace all the porches on the south side because the sun has destroyed them. Sherry said,
Hmm.
wait a minute. I don't think we should do. We should replace all the porches. Okay. So now we disagree. We have a fight. We don't have a fight. We just have a disagreement. I decide to do it. I replace those south side porches, and guess what happens? Now all of a sudden, people who don't have those porches, they get mad and they sue the board of directors. Now,
Hmm.
Sherry's not going to take my side of it because all of a sudden she thought we should do them all. So now all of a sudden she's on the other side. And so
Hmm.
all of a sudden now we're suing each other. We have a claim against each other because she believes one thing, and I believe another.
Hmm. Yeah, board versus board member, and also current board, is suing a past board if they
Yep.
made decisions where they decided to delay putting on a new roof, for example, and then there was some kind of damage or leaks with the new roof or with the old roof that wasn't replaced. So boards can sue old boards too, right, Kevin?
Oh, the perfect example is that when it comes to special assessments or funding reserves, you get a reserve study today. All of a sudden you go, you got to fund this reserve. And you go, well, you know what? We're going to have a meeting about it, and you don't do it. 5 years later, now all of a sudden you need to replace all the roofs you're talking about there, all the porches we talked about earlier. And guess what happened? They can't do it because you didn't fund the reserve 5 years ago like you should have done it. So now this current board is going to go after that board 5 years ago and say, guess what? You should have funded those the budget. You should have budgeted for those expenses the way the reserve study told you to do it, and you didn't do it. That's creates the problem. So it's
Hmm.
really, really important to understand that if you have that we do sue each other, that board members will sue board members, new board members sue old board members. It just happens because we live there and we don't like, you know, we don't
Yeah,
like decisions they made. And guess what? They still live next to us. You know, we have, and they may not like the decision we make today. You know,
right.
we may just get a reserve study and say, no, we're gonna stop funding the reserve study. And 5 years ago, they've been funding it for 5 years, and all of a sudden we stop. That old board may sue us for not funding the reserve.
Hmm.
So the main thing here is that you just want to take off any restriction you have for insured versus insured. Any restriction. You don't want any restriction on there.
Hmm.
Now the interesting one is breach of contract. Now,
Hmm.
breach of contract is always limited to defense costs. Now, I get this question all the time. Why is it defense costs only? And the reason why is because the reality is that if you enter into a contract, okay, between an association and a painter or a landscaper, okay, and you stop paying that contract, it's your job to pay the contract. You have a contract. Our job is to defend you it's to see if you have a legitimate reason for not paying the contract. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't like the job the painter did, to paint it, or the contractor or the roofer, and all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden, you stop paying. You're not going to pay it, and the roofer sues you for failure to for breach of contract.
Mm-hmm.
What we do is to come in and say, okay, let's look at see did it make sense? Did the contract, did you live up to the contract? And then we provide defense only. And if you lose, judgment settlements out there. Pretty standard. No, I don't believe there's a carrier out there that will have a breach of contract, will pay the contract. Because if they did, just think I would enter contracts all day long and just breach them and let the
Yeah.
insurance pay for it.
Oh, sure. It happens every day. Yeah. And I know in the webinar that I did last year with Rachel from Claims, she talked about the association, the board members speaking to their counsel, their attorney, to make sure they're ending the contract correctly and they're not doing anything where they do get sued. So it's a good idea for them to speak to their attorney if they're thinking about ending a contract, not just impulsively ending it. Making sure that they're going through the right steps.
Perfect. Now, failure to maintain insurance. I was in Florida about a month ago. And the number one thing I keep hearing about is failure to maintain insurance, because it's hard getting property insurance in Florida these days. It's hard
Yes,
getting
it's
property insurance
very
everywhere.
expensive. Very
Right now, exactly, expenses. We have the same problem in California, wildfires out here. It's hard to get enough insurance. So how does failure to maintain insurance? Okay. A lot of policies will have a specific failure to maintain insurance exclusion on there. So anytime you get sued because you have inadequate insurance, no coverage. Some will allow you to have coverage, limited coverage, as long as no bodily injury or property damage involved.
Mhm.
The kind of coverage that I would see, and historically I would see, is where you and I live in a community association. I'm a specialist in insurance, you're specialized in insurance, and you look at the insurance requirements, and you live in Florida, and all of a sudden they don't have wind coverage. You're just looking at, wait a minute, it's not acceptable. You got to get wind. Or if I'm in California, I'm looking at my condo association, wait, you got to have earthquake. Hey, you got to have earthquake. So now I'm going to sue the board, because the
Mhm.
board should have had earthquake insurance. And so
Mhm.
now all of a sudden, that is a failure to maintain insurance. You kind of claim that I've seen the story. So,
Mhm.
so it's not going to pay any damages. So it's not going to buy the insurance policy for you, but it may defend you in a sense that, well, you might get some defense that you may get some defense there from the board of directors and say, I guess we made a decision that right now earthquake insurance is too expensive and we don't want to have it. And that might be the end of it. Or the judge may say, you got to buy earthquake insurance, but we're not going to buy it. Nobody's going to buy it. No insurance is going to buy it out there. So failure to maintain insurance, really, really a tricky area that we see a lot, that we get a lot of questions about. And all I can say is, like usual, it depends. So
Yeah, and especially in the past couple of years, Kevin, like you said, with the brush fires in California, being in a brush zone out there, I know that they're very expensive, or they've gotten really expensive, and earthquakes, of course, and then in Florida because of the hurricanes and other things that are going on in the industry here. So definitely a complicated area, and it's gotten a little more tricky. Definitely more tricky.
all
Mhm.
right, let's go to number 3, our last one. This is our last reasons why here. Let's go to number 3.
Okay. I'd like to take a second too to mention that if anybody has any questions about what we're going over today, feel free to type your questions into the questions box. And if we have time at the end, we'll do a Q&A.
All right, this is what I call uninsurable loss exposures. These are things that most carriers don't want to insure because it's kind of like walking into a burning building, or things that just not insurable. Like, for example, any known fact, circumstance, or event that may give rise to a claim. So if we're writing a new piece of business and you have any knowledge, if the board has knowledge of anything that may, give rise to a claim, put your current carrier on notice before you buy a new policy. It has nothing to do with prior acts or pending a prior litigation. It is a fact that if you have any knowledge of any facts, circumstances that may give rise to a claim, let your current carrier know. Let them know. And then fill out the application for a new one, and walk away. But any known fact, circumstance, or event prior to may not be covered. May not be
Mhm.
covered. Okay.
Mhm.
So we know that. Late reporting of claims. This is one of the areas that we hear a lot. I get that phone call. What do you mean? They got a claim, again, go back to your situation. You wanted that brown fence. So you told me, because I can't get that brown fence, I'm going to make a claim against you because you, Kevin, are incompetent as a president. And who are you to tell me I can't put a fence up?
Mhm.
So all of a sudden, I don't submit the claim to my carrier. I said, just Sherry again talking. I'm not going to worry about it. 6 months later, Sherry files a lawsuit filed a lawsuit against me. I put the lawsuit in, and all of a sudden, late reporting of the claim. So it's denied for late reporting. So be
Mhm.
careful that a claim is a written demand for monetary or non-monetary damages. It is not a lawsuit. It's not a suit for damages like it is under your liability policy. It's not a suit for damages. It is a claim, monetary or non-monetary.
So if somebody sends a letter or an email and they're upset about something, it's a good idea to speak to your broker, and send it to the broker right away just to see, if it is a claim, should it be treated as a claim, that kind of a thing. If people are sending letters to the board and sending emails to the board about complaints and talking about a lawsuit or that they're upset about something, I think it's a good idea to check it out.
Yes, exactly. Um, Dishonesty, fraud, willful violation of the law. These things are not insurable. If you committed dishonest act, willful violation, however, you know, it may be some defense cost. It may be some
Mhm.
defense cost. We see situations where the president of the association or one of the board members embezzled some money. Okay. But now all
Mhm.
of a sudden the board of directors gets sued because they allow the president to get away with it or the treasurer or whoever. And so there's innocent parties there. So there may be some defense for innocent parties. There may be. So,
Mhm.
but if you committed dishonest act and you just embezzled $100,000 in cash, and all of a sudden you raise your hand up and says, can you defend me? May not happen.
Mhm. Mhm.
The same thing, the next one, gaining any profit or advantage not entitled to. This is one of the situations where we see periodically where the board of directors said, guess what? We did a good job. Guess what we're going to do? We're going to take some of that reserve money we had out there. We're going to have a good time. So we're going
Mhm.
to go out and we're going to really enjoy ourselves. Then
Mhm.
all of a sudden you get a lawsuit in for waste of corporate assets. And all
Mhm.
of a sudden, we look at it and go, wait a minute, you're not entitled to paying yourself, give yourself a salary or partying like that. You're just not allowed to do that. So you're gaining a profit not entitled to. Now, if the board passes a resolution or the board agrees or the homeowner association agrees that once a year you can do that, then you're entitled to it. So it's not a problem.
Mhm. Mhm.
Which goes for the next one, salaries, bonuses, compensation. So things are you're not entitled to. So these are kind of things that I call the uninsured or loss exposures. So,
Mhm. Okay, that makes
okay.
sense. That makes sense. That covers quite a bit. That's great. And now we're going to just summarize everything that we talked about today, Kevin. The first thing that we talked about was the insuring agreements. Look into the insuring agreements. Let's
Yeah,
let's talk about that.
definitely. Those insurance agreements are so important. You don't want a suit for damages in there. You say
Mm-hmm.
something a suit for damages, you're wiping a lot of your coverage. And that's why the number one reason why your claim will be denied if you have a D&O policy does not pick up claims for monetary and non-monetary relief. Gotta
Mm-hmm.
say monetary and not monetary relief. They can't say a claim for damages, but you're in trouble.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So it's
Next
very
thing,
smart to know what your policy says, to know exactly.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, also look at the definition of insured, claim, and a wrongful act. Definition of insured should include all your volunteers, people who have exposure to loss.
Mm-hmm.
That don't just mean the board of directors, the past and present. That means your committees. Your committees who has to sit back and tell Sherry there, guess what? You can't put that brown fence up there. Because first thing Sherry's going to do is sue that committee and say, who are you to tell me I can't put a brown fence up there? I saw a brown fence on the other side of the complex. You didn't say anything to them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And then,
Eliminates exclusions that should be available. That's the insurer versus insured exclusion, breach of contract exclusion, discrimination exclusion, foreign practice exclusion. These are exclusions that if you see them in your exclusions in your D&O policy, run for the hills. Can't have
mm-hmm.
it. Can't have it.
Yeah, we see too many claims in those areas that you just mentioned. If it's excluded, that wouldn't be a good thing.
And finally, defense costs for certain uninsurable acts. So those uninsurable acts, I call it uninsurable but it's a strong term I'm using for uninsurable. It may be defense costs in there. Always ask, wait a minute, can you provide a defense? If they come back and say, well, we're declining because these are uninsurable, can you provide a defense? That's what discrimination first started. Discrimination used to be against public policy. It's against the law to discriminate. So all of a sudden, it happened about, I don't know, 20 years ago, when to discriminate is a wrongful act. So even though it's against public policy, is there a right to provide a defense? You can provide a defense. But if you actually discriminate, it's probably no judgment or settlement anybody's going to pay. So, but you may get a defense. So,
Mhm.
so I think we did it. I think we covered them all.
I think we did. I think we did. We covered quite a bit of territory and quite a bit of information. If you have any questions, feel free to send your questions into the Q&A box. And I see somebody raise their hand.
Oh,
Let's
don't
see.
forget, we have the 800 number. There you
Yeah,
go.
I'll finish.
Helpline.
I'll be with you in 1 second, everybody. I'm just going to read off a couple of numbers here. We have a risk management helpline for travelers insureds that have the Community Association Management Liability Coverage. This particular helpline offers 1 hour free of legal advice from the law firm of Cole, Scott, and Cassane. The number's up on the screen. It's 855-548-8656. And this is a great resource and a great tool for you to share with your insureds and let them know if they have any questions regarding something like maybe a claim or they're concerned about something becoming a claim. This is a great helpline for them to utilize and for you to be aware of as well. And then on the next slide, we have the claims hotline, which is 800-842-8496. And that's located on every policy, on every traveler's policy, D&O policy. And now we have quite a few questions that have come in. Kevin, do we have time to answer a few questions?
Yeah, we do.
All righty. We've got 4 questions, and then let's see, we had somebody with their hands raised. Let me see. Okay, let's see. Okay, here we go. Oh, Jeanette would like me to restate my email address. It's Sherry, SHERRY .Branson, BRANSON @amwins.com. Sherry.Branson @amwins.com. And thank you very much, Jeanette. And then Jeffrey has a question. Is defense cost coverage a separate coverage?
Okay, that's a good question. It depends. I mean, some carriers out there have defense costs inside, some have it outside. I would tell you this much, most of the D&O claims we've seen, okay, is less than $1 million. $1 million D&O claim is a huge claim in the deal. Most of our claims come in $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, and most of it's defense costs. At the end of the day, most of the claims that we see are defense costs. So, but it varies.
It varies. Okay, great. Thank you, Jeffrey, and thank you, Jeanette. And then Erin has a question. Erin Burns. Thank you, Erin. She says she'd like more clarification on insured versus insured if you have time.
Okay. Oh, good. Let's do it. Okay. I'm the president of my association. Sherry's the president of the same association 5 years ago. 5 years ago, Sherry got a reserve study done. Reserve study says we need $1 million between now and over the next 5-year period to replace all the roofs. Now all of a sudden, Sherry looks at that $1 million and go, I'm not going to be living here in 3 years. Why do I care? Okay. And then the rest of the board members say, you know what? We're not going to be living here either. So we're going to put that reserve study aside. So now 5 years later, I'm the president of my association. I'm looking at $1 million we got to raise. So I'm going to the bank trying to get $1 million to pay for the roofs that need to be repaired. All of a sudden, I'm looking at this reserve study that was dated 5 years ago, and I go after Sherry and say, Sherry, how come you didn't reserve properly? And she's going to say, I don't remember ever seeing that before. She's not, I don't know. What's a reserve study? So you should have done it. So I'm going to blame her, and I'm going to sue her because she should have reserved properly 5 years ago. And what happens now, all of a sudden, because of D&O policy, if it provides D&O for past board members, now all of a sudden, once she gets sued, she puts a claim onto the D&O policy right now. And so that's the insured versus insured exclusion.
Mm-hmm.
Another insured versus insured exclusion that we see.
Board member suing another board member, basically.
Yes. Here's a new one that we're seeing. We live in this world where we don't trust people, right? And we have a lot of election disputes where we have a newly elected board of directors that's been elected. Okay. Then all of a sudden somebody challenges the board of directors and says, wait a minute, you're not elected properly. You didn't have the proper amount of votes. You didn't have the proper amount of whatever. And all of a sudden, guess what? The current board is still in effect. So we're not going to give up our position because we don't think the new board has been elected properly. The election was, as I say, fixed. It was a fixed election. And so we're seeing that a lot these days, where you have the new board who was duly elected and the old board saying, no, no, we don't believe you duly elected because it was fixed election. And guess what happens then? So now all of a sudden we have to defend the new board and the old board until we determine which one is what. So that's an insure versus insurance solution. That's how it works. We have to defend everybody out there and sort the whole thing out. And we're seeing that more and more each day because we don't trust anybody these days.
Interesting. Okay. I hope that answers your question, Aaron. And I'm going to give my email one more time. A couple of people have asked for my email
Just put
again.
it in the chat. Put it in the chat.
Okay. Well, we have 3 people asked. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, put it in the chat.
Yeah, I'll type it out there. And then you can all see it. And then if you have any other questions afterwards, feel free to send me an email as well, and I can answer your questions in an email or give me a call. And let's see. Okay, I think that might be it. Let me check. Stephen asked for the email. Oh, the website. Okay, thank you, Kimberly. Kimberly would like to know what's the website where you can listen to the webinars again. It's kdisonline.com. If you'd like to send me an email, I can send you a link directly to our website as well, where you can see the webinars and listen to the webinars. And great. If anybody has any other questions, let me know. Oh, we've got one that's come in here. Let's see. Okay. Oh, Kevin put that. Okay, there we go. Kevin put the website up, kdisonline.com. Let's see, do we have any more questions that have come in? Oh, Kimberly said, thank you. You're welcome, Kimberly. Okay, fantastic. And if you think of any other questions, like I said, feel free to send me an email. My phone number is in my email as well. You can give me a call or you can give Kevin a call. And yeah, and great information, Kevin, fantastic information. Again, if you'd like the PowerPoint from today's webinar, I can send you the PowerPoint recordings on our website, which is kdisonline.com.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Thank you for a great webinar. And thank you everybody so much for joining us, and have a great afternoon. We hope to see you next time.
All right, take care.
Take care.